This is the second challenge of our sports-themed July month. So this is focusing on Wimbledon, so the tennis. So we've got our singles champions here. So the data is structured in a way that we've got our year, our men's champion and our women's champion. We can see that we've got some nulls for our men's champions, and this kind of is a little key. So if we look at the year field there, we can see where tournaments got cancelled for various reasons. So we're going to want to deal with these and the years that they are associated with. For example, if we scroll down to the bottom, 2020 is probably the easiest one for me to quickly find. Then you can see the 4 there at the end of the year is what relates to this 4 here. So we need to clean up the year field a little bit as well. So we'll start off by filtering out these null values, these kind of reasons or extra information, because we don't need them in our data set. Then we'll extract this ID that comes at the end and clean up our year field. So extracting our ID, we're saying that if the year is longer than 4 characters long, then we want to take the final character. That will be our ID. So we take a look at that. We get this ID field here. And then we want to fix our year. So we look at if the ID field is null. So if there's no special number at the end of the year, then we leave the year alone. Otherwise, we take one away from the length. So we start from the left and we only take as many characters minus 1. So I guess I could have just written 4 there rather than being fancy, but we just want the 4 first characters basically. And there we have it, a nice cleaned up year field. Then we want to filter out our cancelled years. So basically what we want to do is we want to only keep the null and the 3. Why the 3? That's just because it tells you that that is when the open era started. So we don't want to get rid of this row because you can see we do have champions in those years, so we want to keep the null and the 3 only. So keep only those. And also translate our year field into a numeric field. Okay, lovely. So now we're ready to start thinking about the data structure and how we want this to match up with the other champions, so the doubles champions. So we want, first of all, the men and the women's singles champions to be in a single column. So we're going to pivot the data first. So pivoting a columns to rows pivot and having the men and the women in the same field. And I've renamed that to be tournament. And we've got our champions here. I filtered out the null values. That's where there weren't any female champions for the first few years. There weren't any female games in those first few years. So we just filter out those rows and that's okay. And then we want to update the men and the women here to be the men's singles and the women's singles. So it's a bit more descriptive. So we're renaming those values in this step. So I was having a bit of an issue here, a bit of a bug. So when I was just double clicking and renaming, it was coming up with an error for me, so I just decided to write an if statement instead. So if you were having that bug too, hopefully this is a simple workaround. It's something I have let the prep developers know about, so hopefully that'll be something that can be fixed quite quickly. So there we go, we've got our men's singles champions, our women's singles, and we've got a little bit of information in our champion field about which country they're representing. So we probably want to separate that out into its own field. So we'll split based on the bracket. So we do our split here. We've got our nationality, we've got our champion. So the way that we did that split was just going to the option here of split values, custom split on that open bracket and taking all the fields. So we've got our champion and our nationality. Now this is ready to kind of stack together with the doubles champions and the mixed doubles champions. So let's clean up those data sets first. So the doubles champion is pretty similar. It comes from the same data set as the comes from the same website, sorry, as the singles champions, sorry. I was just noticing the fact that I've changed the data type here of the year to be a string rather than a numeric value, and that's just because of those 4 final rows where it has the information about 1, 2, 3 or 4, and we want that information to come through so that we can easier it's easier to filter out if we bring it through. So that is a change I've made in both these input steps that I forgot to mention. Okay, so let's take a look at our doubles champions anyway. So very similar structure. We're going to do pretty similar things. So first of all, if we look at here, we are filtering out any of the nulls. So those null values, if we take a look here, they are the 1, 2, or the 3 of those tournaments being cancelled. So we want to get rid of those. But above, what we're doing in this stream is that we're actually keeping those because we want to be able to filter those out later. So it's just a different way of doing a similar thing to what we've done before. We honestly didn't actually need to do this. I was working towards something else when I was developing this challenge, so we could just do it as simply as we did before, where we've identified our ID and we've cleaned up our year field, and then we could just keep only these nulls, and we would get a very similar result to doing this join that we've done later. I'm only just realizing that now. So we could just follow exactly the same kind of logic as above, so probably should have done that, but not to worry. But very similar steps here of just pivoting so that we have all the champions in the same list. In this case, this is the exact error that I was telling you about, where I've just renamed them, and you can see it hasn't actually renamed them and it's struggled. So I would just need to update this. So let's do that now. So we'll update the tournament field instead using exactly the same calculation up here, in fact. So I'll go copy and paste it to save myself having to type that again, and pop that in here. So we're just naming it the tournament again. And there we go. Oops, we want it to be doubles though, don't we? Not singles. That's a good point. That I do need to change that. So then doubles. Lovely. Okay, so yeah, that error seems to be a bug of some kind. It's not liking us renaming those values from men's to men's doubles and women's to women's doubles. So we've fixed that ourselves here. But our issue at the moment now is that for the doubles, obviously we've got 2 champions. So we need to split those into their own fields and then pivot a second time. So splitting based on that comma. So going to split values, custom split on that comma, splitting off all the fields so that we get these 2 additional fields here for our champions, and then pivoting in much the same way and just renaming those fields. So we've got the champion, the tournament, and the year, and then these will feed into a union soon. But first of all, we need to just do our doubles, mixed doubles champions. That looks slightly different. So it's coming in. We haven't got those extra rows, I don't think, have we? No, this time our nulls are just representing the years where the tournament was cancelled. And so we can see that that's all filtered out. That's exactly what we'll filter out next. So we've also got some extra information about runners-up and the scores of those finals matches, but we're not going to worry too much about those for this data set. So we're excluding those rows where the tournament was cancelled, and we are excluding the runners-up and the score fields as they don't matter. We're adding in a quick tournament field for mixed doubles since we don't have that anywhere in the data set at the moment. And then we've got to find a way to split up these champions. So this time we can see there's a \n that we're trying to split on, and many of you may have tried to use the custom split on \n, doing all, and done the split, and nothing's happened, and you think, oh, what have I done wrong? And so although we can see this new line identifier, this \n, in the string, it looks like it's part of the string. It's actually not. It's actually just separated on 2 different lines. And so what we need to do is replace that with some kind of value that we can actually split on. So we're going to replace this char10, which is that \n, that new line identifier, with just a comma instead. And then we have something nice and simple to split on, and we can do what we would normally do. So that's something that I only came across for the first time today when I was making the challenge. So thank you to the Tableau forums for always holding the answers that help us to circumvent these problems. Okay, so again, we're just going to pivot that. So we've got a champion per row, and then just we can see, for example, with Alice Marble here, we've got a little number in the brackets afterwards. I think it's where they win multiple times, which win they are winning in those mixed doubles in this data set. So let's just get rid of any information in those brackets. So splitting on that open bracket, and now we can see, for example, Alice Marble, all of their wins are contained in one value. Lovely. So I don't know why I did 2 unions here. That's a really good question and I'm not sure the answer to, but we could have all these 3 feeds feeding into 1 union and then that's all good. We've got rid of the table names field because that's not necessary for us, because we have all the information about the tournament, the champion, the year, and we do have the nationality, but we're probably going to remove that in the next step because we only have it for the singles champions. So we remove that field there. We want to work out what their most recent win is, just for that extra data point in our final data set. So for that, we're going to do a fixed level of detail calculation. So we're going to do a fixed LOD there. And we are fixing that for each champion for each tournament. For each champion, I think we just do it for, and we want to know what their maximum year is. So we change that to a max. We do it for each champion. When was the most recent win? So we have some kind of context around when these players were winning championships. Okay, so we do that in the next step. Let's just double check that I've said the right thing. I have, brilliant. And then we're going to pivot our data so that we have so that we can count up how many times each champion won in each tournament. So doing a rows to columns pivot this time, having the tournament being our new headers and counting the distinct number of years that they won in each of these tournaments. And then we want to filter out to only players who have won a singles title and also a doubles. So let's take a look at the calculation that we're doing here. So we've got a singles and doubles champion. So we want for the men's singles plus the women's singles to be greater than 0. So they have to have won either a men's title or a women's singles title. And similarly, then we have the and in between, and we want them to have won at least one of the men's mixed or women's doubles. So that also has to be greater than 0. And then we find out which of our champions have won both the singles and the doubles. Filter to only our trues, get rid of that field, we don't need it anymore. And then our final step is just to rank, for example. So we are going to work out the total number of championships, so literally just adding together those 5 fields. And then we're going to rank those, so ranking across the whole table from highest to lowest those champions. So we find out that Martina Navratilova, terrible at pronouncing surnames, apologies, has been the most successful, which isn't a surprise to anyone really, across the singles and the doubles. But it is certainly interesting to see how it does seem to have not happened. I mean, the most recent one is kind of Venus Williams, Serena Williams. They're the most recent tennis stars who have been winning singles and doubles, but generally it looks like most of these champions who have been successful in both singles and doubles are from a bit longer ago, further into the past. So interesting how the game has changed and evolved. And then we've just got a categorizing step here for gender, just to add in that detail of whether it is a man or a woman who is the champion there. And we can see it's pretty 50-50 in our data set, which is also interesting. So hopefully you enjoyed that challenge, and thank you very much for watching.